Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the massive warship called Retribution's Edge. Through the wide windows, she could see hundreds of thousands of ships stretching out into the darkness of space. Each ship carried weapons and angry humans who wanted revenge. 3 years had passed since Earth died. Sarah still remembered that terrible day when she watched her home planet burn from space. The memory made her hands shake with anger. The alien race called the Zephyrians had sent Earth a simple message: "Give up all your colony worlds and become our slaves, or we will destroy you." The people of Earth had laughed at this threat. Earth had powerful weapons and brave soldiers. How could aliens defeat them? They learned the answer in 12 hours. Sarah closed her eyes and remembered the last transmission from Earth. Her sister Maria had been talking to her from New York when the sky turned bright white. "Sarah, something's happening. The sky is glowing," and the transmission cut to static. Every communication from Earth went silent at the same moment. The Zephyrians had used massive space weapons to turn Earth's surface into melted glass. 40 billion people died in one day. Sarah's family, her friends, her dog Max, all gone forever. Only the humans living on colony worlds survived. 200 million people were all that remained of humanity. "Admiral, we're ready for the final jump," said Commander Marcus Webb. He was a good soldier who had lost his wife and 3 children on Earth. His voice was calm, but Sarah could see the anger burning in his eyes. Sarah looked at the tactical display showing their fleet. 900,000 ships, the largest war fleet in human history. They had spent 3 years building this armada. Every surviving human had helped. Farmers gave up their tractors to be turned into war machines. Children donated their toy robots to help build targeting computers. Old people offered their medical equipment to keep the fleet's life support systems running. "All ships report ready for hyperspace jump, Admiral," said Lieutenant Kim Park from the communication station. She was only 19 years old but had volunteered to fight because the Zephyrians had killed her parents. Sarah walked to her command chair and activated the fleet-wide communication system. Her voice reached every ship in the armada. "Attention, all vessels. Today we travel to the home system of the creatures who murdered our world. We don't go there seeking victory. We go seeking justice." She paused and looked out at the stars. Somewhere among those lights was Earth's grave. The Zephyrians think they ended humanity when they destroyed Earth. They were wrong. They only made us angry. Today we show them what happens when you kill. The family of 900,000 angry humans. The bridge crew cheered. Across the fleet, similar cheers echoed through ship after ship. Sarah raised her hand for silence. "Intelligence reports say the Zephyrian homeworld is protected by something called the Iron Gates. These are huge weapon platforms that have defended their system for 500 years. No enemy has ever broken through them." Sarah smiled coldly. "Good. We like breaking things that have never been broken before." Dr. James Park, the fleet's chief scientist, spoke up from his station. "Admiral, our analysis shows the Iron Gates use energy shields and automated weapons, but we have quantum torpedoes and fusion bombs. Raw firepower should—" "Doctor," Sarah interrupted, "we're not just bringing firepower. We're bringing hate, and human hate burns hotter than any star." Commander Webb stepped forward. "Admiral, what are our orders when we reach their system?" Sarah's voice became hard as steel. "Simple. Kill everything that moves. Destroy every ship, every station, every weapon platform. Then we land on their homeworld and make them pay for what they did to Earth." The tactical officer, Captain Elena Vasquez, looked uncomfortable. "Ma'am, what about Zephyrian civilians? Their families?" Sarah turned to face her. Elena was a good officer, but she was too soft. "Captain, did the Zephyrians care about our families? Did they spare our children, our elderly, our pets?" Her voice rose with each word. "They turned 40 billion innocent people into ash and glass. Today we return the favor." Elena nodded slowly. Like everyone else, she had lost people on Earth. Her brother and his family had been visiting Rome when the orbital bombardment began. There were no survivors from Rome. There were no survivors from anywhere on Earth. "All ships prepare for hyperspace jump," Sarah commanded. The bridge lights dimmed as the ship's massive engines powered up. Through the windows, Sarah could see the other ships doing the same thing. Points of light began to appear around each vessel as their hyperspace drives activated. "Jump countdown initiated," announced the navigation officer. 30 seconds to jump. Sarah opened a private communication channel to her personal log. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen, commanding the combined human fleet. Today, we begin the final journey to avenge Earth. I don't know if we'll survive what comes next. The Zephyrians are powerful and their defenses are strong, but I know this. Every human in this fleet would rather die fighting than live with the shame of letting Earth's murderers go unpunished." 15 seconds to jump. Sarah thought about her sister Maria, about her parents who had retired to a farm in Iowa, about her nephew Tommy who loved baseball and wanted to be an astronaut, about millions of other families who would never laugh together again. 10 seconds. The ship began to vibrate as the hyperspace drive reached full power. 5 seconds. Sarah gripped her command chair and spoke one last message to the fleet. "For Earth, for our families, for humanity's future. Jump!" The stars outside suddenly stretched into long white lines. Then everything went black as 900,000 human warships disappeared into hyperspace, carrying their cargo of weapons and rage toward the home system of their enemies. In the hyperspace tunnel, Sarah stood alone on her bridge and made a silent promise to her dead sister. "I'm coming, Maria. I'm bringing friends, and we're going to make them pay for what they did to you." The journey to the Zephyrian system would take 6 days. 6 days to prepare for the greatest battle in human history. Sarah spent those days planning the attack, checking weapon systems and talking to her ship captains, but mostly she spent them remembering Earth. She remembered the blue oceans and white clouds, the smell of fresh air and growing plants, the sound of children playing in parks. All of that was gone now, replaced by radioactive glass and silence. But soon there would be another kind of silence, the silence of dead Zephyrians floating in the wreckage of their burned cities. Sarah smiled at the thought. It would be a good silence. On the 6th day, the navigation officer announced, "Approaching target system. Prepare to exit hyperspace." Sarah straightened in her command chair and opened the fleet communication channel one final time. "All ships, this is Admiral Chen. We have arrived at our destination. Remember why we came here. Remember what they took from us. Today we take everything from them." The stars returned as 900,000 human warships dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Zephyrian system. Sarah expected to see the legendary iron gates bristling with weapons and swarming with enemy ships. Instead, she saw something that made her blood run cold. The iron gates were dark, silent, broken, and drifting through the wreckage were pieces of Zephyrian ships that looked like they had been torn apart by something with claws the size of buildings. Admiral Sarah Chen stared at the tactical display in shock. The iron gates, the famous defense system that had protected the Zephyrian homeworld for 500 years, looked like a junkyard. Massive weapon platforms drifted dark and broken. Pieces of destroyed ships floated everywhere like metallic snow. "Commander Webb, take your scout ships forward," Sarah ordered. "I want to know what happened here." Marcus Webb nodded and spoke into his communicator. "Scout Wing Alpha, follow me. Full sensors, weapons ready. If anything moves, shoot first and ask questions later." Sarah watched on the main screen as 50 small human ships moved toward the wreckage. The rest of the massive human fleet stayed back, weapons pointed at the seemingly dead defense platforms. "Admiral," said Dr. Park from his science station, "I'm reading massive battle damage on those platforms. But the weapon signatures aren't human or Zephyrian. This is something else, entirely." Captain Vasquez looked up from her tactical console. "The damage patterns are strange, Admiral. It's like something took apart those platforms piece by piece instead of just blowing them up." Sarah felt a cold fear growing in her stomach. "How long ago did this happen?" "Based on the radiation decay from the weapon impacts, I'd say 3 or 4 days ago," Dr. Park replied. 3 days ago, the human fleet had still been in hyperspace, traveling here for their revenge. Something else had gotten here first and destroyed the Zephyrians' mighty defenses. Scout Wing reporting. came Webb's voice over the radio. "Admiral, you need to see this. I'm sending live video feed." The main screen switched to Webb's camera view. His ship was moving through a debris field of twisted metal and broken alien technology. But then Sarah saw something that made her heart race. "Are those escape pods?" she asked. "Yes, ma'am. Zephyrian escape pods. Some of them are still broadcasting distress signals." Sarah made a quick decision. "Bring one of those pods aboard your ship, Commander. I want to talk to a survivor." "Roger that, Admiral." 20 minutes later, Webb's voice crackled over the radio again. "Admiral, we've got a survivor. It's a Zephyrian officer, badly wounded. And ma'am, you're not going to believe what he's telling us." "Put him through to the fleet communication system," Sarah ordered. The main screen flickered, then showed the inside of Webb's ship. A tall, four-armed alien was strapped to a medical table. His blue-gray skin was covered with bandages, and one of his arms was completely gone. Sarah recognized the uniform. This was a high-ranking Zephyrian officer. The alien's large black eyes focused on the camera with great effort. When he spoke, his voice was filled with pain and fear. "Human ships," the Zephyrian said in broken English. "You come for revenge, yes? You want to kill us for destroying your Earth?" Sarah leaned forward in her chair. This was Admiral Kethavar the Destroyer, the same Zephyrian who had ordered Earth's destruction. She had seen his face in intelligence reports. This was the alien she had planned to kill with her own hands. "That's exactly why we're here," Sarah replied coldly. The alien made a sound that might have been laughter, but it sounded more like crying. "You are too late, humans. Your revenge is meaningless now. The Devourers have come." "What are Devourers?" Sarah demanded. Kethavar's remaining 3 arms trembled. "Ancient machines, older than my people, older than yours. They sleep in the dark between stars for millions of years. But something woke them up." Dr. Park stepped closer to the screen. "What woke them? Our expansion into the outer spiral arms, our energy signals, our wars." The alien's voice grew weaker. "We found warnings about them in ancient ruins. But we thought we were strong enough to fight anything." Sarah felt her anger struggling with confusion. "What happened to your fleet? Your defenses?" 6 days, Kethavar whispered. "The Dominion fell in 6 days. They came from nowhere, ships the size of moons. Weapons that turn matter into energy and energy into more of them. They don't destroy civilizations, they consume them." Captain Vasquez checked her instruments. "Admiral, I'm picking up movement, deeper in the system. Something big is orbiting the Zephyrian homeworld." The main screen switched to long-range sensors. What Sarah saw made her blood freeze. The Zephyrian homeworld, which should have been a glowing city planet with 40 billion inhabitants, was covered in massive mechanical structures. Giant machines crawled across its surface like metal spiders, tearing up the ground and buildings. "Dear God," whispered Dr. Park. "They're harvesting the entire planet." Kethavar saw their expressions and nodded sadly. "They take everything. Matter, energy, information, even the patterns in dead brains. All becomes part of their collective mind. My people, my world, all of it feeds the machine now." Sarah's hands clenched into fists. "How many of your people survived?" "Perhaps 50,000 scattered across the outer planets. Of 40 billion, only 50,000. The alien's voice broke. "I was Kethavar the Destroyer. I destroyed your Earth. I thought myself the greatest predator in the galaxy, but we were just cattle that forgot our place." Commander Webb's voice came through the radio. "Admiral, we're detecting more movement in the system. Whatever these Devourers are, they're still active." Sarah made a hard decision. "All ships, pull back to the outer system. Maximum range, deploy all sensor drones." As the human fleet retreated, Sarah studied the data streaming in from their scouts. The machines on the Zephyrian homeworld were working with terrifying efficiency. Entire continents were being stripped down to bedrock and converted into geometric patterns that pulsed with alien energy. "How fast do they work?" Sarah asked Dr. Park. At this rate, they'll have consumed the entire planet in another week, he replied. And Admiral, I'm detecting similar energy signatures from 6 other star systems. They're doing this to multiple worlds at once. The terrible truth hit Sarah like a physical blow. The Devourers weren't just destroying the Zephyrian Dominion. They were systematically harvesting an entire section of the galaxy. Commander Webb, bring that alien aboard the Retribution's Edge, Sarah ordered. I need to hear everything he knows about these machines. Yes, ma'am. But Admiral, what are our orders? Do we still attack the Zephyrians? Sarah looked out at the dark wreckage of the Iron Gates, then at the image of the dying Zephyrian world. She had come here with 900,000 ships and enough anger to burn down a star. She had planned to make the Zephyrians suffer as they had made humanity suffer. But now she faced a terrible choice. The Zephyrians were already suffering worse than anything she could have done to them. And if the Devourers were as dangerous as they seemed, they might come for the human colonies next. Hold position, Commander. I need to think. Sarah closed her eyes and tried to imagine what her sister Maria would have wanted. Maria had been a teacher who loved children. Would she want Sarah to attack a broken enemy while an even greater threat was loose in the galaxy? But then Sarah remembered the moment Earth died, the static that replaced her sister's voice, the 40 billion people who had been murdered in 12 hours. Admiral, came Dr. Park's urgent voice. Long-range sensors are picking up massive structures moving toward the outer edge of the system. They're not heading for us. They're heading toward the spiral arm where our colonies are located. Sarah opened her eyes and looked at the tactical display. Red dots marked the approaching Devourer machines. Their trajectory would take them straight toward human space. The aliens who had destroyed Earth were broken and helpless, but the machines that had broken them were heading toward the last survivors of humanity. Sarah had to choose between revenge and survival, between justice for the dead and protection for the living. She looked at Kethvar on the screen. The alien, who had murdered her world, was now asking humans for help. Commander Webb, she said slowly, bring that alien aboard and prepare the War Council for an emergency meeting. We need to decide what we're going to do with 900,000 warships and a new enemy that makes the Zephyrians look like children. The greatest fleet in human history had come seeking vengeance. Instead, they had found something that might require them to save the very enemies they had come to destroy. The war room aboard the Retribution's Edge was filled with angry voices. 20 human officers sat around a metal table, and they were not happy with what Admiral Sarah Chen was telling them. You want us to help the aliens who killed Earth? Shouted Colonel Maria Santos. She had been visiting her daughter in Mexico City when the orbital bombardment began. Both had died in the first wave of attacks. My child died screaming because of them. Admiral Kethvar sat at the far end of the table, his wounded body strapped into a special chair. The Zephyrian looked tired and broken. His remaining 3 arms hung limply at his sides. I understand your anger, Sarah said to her officers. I lost my family too. We all did. But we have a bigger problem now. Dr. Park activated the main display screen. It showed footage from their reconnaissance drones near the Zephyrian homeworld. The images were horrifying. Massive machines, each the size of a city, crawled across the planet's surface. They were tearing up the ground and buildings, converting everything into strange geometric patterns that glowed with alien light. These Devourers don't just destroy, Dr. Park explained. They convert matter into energy and energy into more of themselves. They're growing stronger with every planet they consume. Captain Elena Vasquez studied the tactical data. How many worlds have they hit so far? Kethvar spoke up in his broken English. 7 systems completely harvested, 3 more under attack. In 12 days, they destroyed the greatest military power in this part of the galaxy. Commander Webb slammed his hand on the table. Good, let them destroy each other. We'll go back to our colonies and rebuild humanity. No, said Dr. Park quietly. We can't. Look at this. The screen changed to show a star map. Red dots marked the Devourer attacks, forming a pattern that made Sarah's heart sink. The machines were moving in a straight line toward human space. They're coming for our colonies, Sarah said. Based on their speed, they'll reach New Terra in 18 days. The room fell silent. New Terra was home to 60 million human survivors, nearly 1/3 of their entire species. Kethvar shifted in his chair with obvious pain. The Devourers do not make war as you understand it. They do not hate or love or seek revenge. They simply consume. Every intelligent species becomes food for their growth. "How do you know so much about them?" asked Captain Vasquez. "My people found ancient ruins on the edge of our territory. Warnings left by a dead civilization. The builders wrote about machines that came from the dark between stars, machines that ate entire galaxies before going to sleep." Kethvar's black eyes stared at the table. "We thought we were smart enough to avoid their fate. We were wrong." "Colonel," Santos glared at the alien, "why should we trust anything you say? You lied to us before when you demanded Earth's surrender." Kethvar looked directly at her. "Because, human, I have no reason to lie anymore. My empire is dead. My people are dead. My world feeds machines that I cannot fight. All I have left is the hope that someone somewhere might survive what I helped to wake." Sarah stood up and walked to the display screen. The image showed the Devourer machine systematically stripping another Zephyrian world. "Dr. Park, what would happen if these things reached Earth's colonies?" "The same thing that happened here," Park replied grimly. "Total consumption. Not just the people, the planets themselves. They'd strip mine entire star systems. How many ships do we have that could hurt these machines?" Sarah asked. Webb consulted his tablet. "Our heaviest weapons are quantum torpedoes and fusion bombs. We've got enough firepower to crack a moon in half." Kethvar made a sound like bitter laughter. "We threw everything at them. Weapons that could destroy stars, ships that could fight entire fleets. Nothing worked. Their technology adapts to every attack. They learn from every weapon you use and become immune to it." "Then how do we stop them?" Sarah demanded. "You don't," Kethvar said. "Simply, you run, you hide. You hope they go to sleep again before they find you." The room erupted in angry shouts. Human officers stood up and yelled at each other about honor and duty and impossible choices. Sarah let them argue for a few minutes, then slammed her hand on the table hard enough to crack it. "Quiet!" Everyone sat down and looked at her. "Running isn't an option," Sarah said. "Our colonies can't be moved. 60 million people can't just disappear into deep space. We have to fight." "Fight with what?" asked Webb. "Our weapons don't work against them." Dr. Park cleared his throat nervously. "Actually, I may have found something." He activated his personal tablet and sent data to the main screen. "I've been analyzing the debris from the iron gates. The Devourer. Weapons use a form of adaptive technology that instantly learns to counter any threat. But there's a problem with their system." The screen showed complex energy patterns and mathematical equations. Most of the officers looked confused, but Sarah could see Dr. Park was excited about something. "Their adaptive systems are based on quantum mechanical probability calculations," Park continued. "But they're so old that they can't properly process modern quantum encryption, the kind we use for our interstellar communication networks." Captain Vasquez leaned forward. "What does that mean?" "It means we might be able to create a virus, a quantum-encrypted data package that their systems can't adapt to because they can't properly analyze it." Kethvar raised his head with interest. "A virus that attacks their collective consciousness?" "Exactly, but we'd have to plant it directly into their main processing centers, and we'd need detailed knowledge of their target worlds to know where to hit them." Sarah looked at the alien officer. "You know your homeworld better than anyone. Could you guide our ships to the right targets?" Kethvar was quiet for a long moment. Around the table, human officers stared at him with expressions ranging from hatred to desperate hope. "I destroyed your world," the alien said finally. "I ordered the death of 40 billion of your people. Why would you trust me to help you?" Sarah sat back down and looked directly into his black eyes. "Because right now you're the only chance we have to save the living. My sister is dead. Your people are dead. But my nephew's friends on New Terra are still alive. Your survivors, hiding in the outer planets, are still alive. Maybe we can't save the dead, but we can try to save them." The room was completely silent. Even the ship's engines seemed quieter. Kethvar slowly moved one of his remaining arms and placed it flat on the table. If I help you, will you help my people escape to a safe system? If we succeed, yes, Sarah replied. And if we fail, then we'll all be dead anyway. The alien was quiet for another minute. Then he said, I know the location of every processing center on Zephyr Prime. I know the patrol routes, the defense patterns, everything you would need for a precision strike. Colonel Santos stood up angrily. Admiral, this is insane. We came here to make them pay for Earth. Now you want to save them? Sarah stood to face her. Maria, what would your daughter want you to do? Save some children? Or let all children die for the sake of revenge? The colonel's face crumpled. She sat back down and put her head in her hands. Sarah looked around the table at her officers. These were good people who had lost everything and wanted justice for their dead families. But now she was asking them to fight alongside their enemies, to protect strangers they had never met. I'm not ordering anyone to do this, she said. Anyone who can't accept this alliance can transfer to a ship heading home. But I'm going to try to stop these machines. Not for the Zephyrians, for the human children sleeping safely tonight on New Terra, who don't know that death is coming. For them. Commander Webb was the first to speak. I'll stay. My family is dead, but that doesn't mean everyone else's family should die too. One by one, the other officers agreed to continue the mission. Even Colonel Santos finally nodded. Sarah turned to Kethvar. Can you contact your surviving ships? Yes. We have 30,000 vessels scattered across the outer system. They will follow my orders. Then welcome to the strangest alliance in galactic history, Sarah said grimly. 900,000 human ships and 30,000 Zephyrian ships working together to fight machines that neither of us can defeat alone. Dr. Park was already working on his tablet. I'll need detailed plans of the Zephyrian homeworld in 3 days to prepare the quantum virus. You have 2 days, Sarah replied. Long-range sensors show more devourer machines heading our way. If we're going to do this, we have to do it fast. As the meeting broke up, Sarah remained behind with Kethvar. The alien who had destroyed her world looked at her with something like gratitude. Admiral Chen, he said, I have killed many worlds. I have ordered the extinction of species. But what we face now, it is beyond even my capacity for destruction. Sarah nodded grimly. Then I guess it's time to find out what humans and Zephyrians can do when they work together instead of trying to kill each other. The engineering bay of the Retribution's Edge had never seen anything like this before. Human technicians worked side by side with 4-armed Zephyrian engineers, sharing tools and technical knowledge that both species had kept secret for centuries. Admiral, Sarah Chen watched from the observation deck as her people collaborated with their former enemies. 2 days ago, these same humans had been planning to kill every Zephyrian they could find. Now they were helping them repair damaged ships and modify weapon systems. It's strange, isn't it? Said Dr. Park, joining Sarah at the window. How quickly people can change when they face something worse than their worst enemy. Below them, a young human engineer named Lisa was showing a Zephyrian how to install quantum encryption modules into their communication systems. Lisa had lost her parents in the orbital bombardment of Earth, but she was patiently teaching the alien how to save his species. How's the virus development going? Sarah asked. Better than expected. The Zephyrians have detailed scans of the devourer processing centers from their failed defense attempts. Combined with our quantum encryption technology, we should be able to create cascade failures throughout their network. Sarah nodded, but she was worried about something else. What? About morale? Half our people still want to shoot the Zephyrians. The other half want to save everyone in the galaxy, Park replied. I think the better angels of our nature are winning. Commander Webb approached them with a data tablet in his hands. Admiral, we've finished the fleet integration. 900,000 human vessels and 32,000 Zephyrian survivors. The combined armada is ready for combat. Any problems with the joint command structure? Some. Captain Morrison from the destroyer fleet still refuses to take orders from Zephyrian tactical advisors. and about 50 ship captains have requested permission to return to human space. Sarah sighed. Grant the requests. I won't force anyone to fight alongside people who killed their families, but make sure they understand. If we fail here, the Devourers will reach our colonies in 2 weeks. Yes, ma'am. Most of them are staying. Even the angry ones know we need every ship we can get. Through the observation window, Sarah could see Admiral Kethvar talking with a group of human officers. The alien was using a holographic display to show them the layout of his home world. His remaining 3 arms moved quickly as he pointed out key locations that the virus would need to reach. He's been helpful, Webb said, following her gaze. More helpful than I expected. He knows this might be his species' only chance for survival, Sarah replied. Desperate people do desperate things, even when those people have 4 arms and used to be our enemies. Captain Elena Vasquez joined them on the observation deck. Admiral, we're receiving long-range sensor data from our scout ships. The Devourer machines are moving faster than we calculated. Sarah felt her stomach drop. How much faster? They'll reach the outer colonies in 12 days, not 18. And ma'am, they're sending scout units ahead of the main force. New Terra will be under attack in 8 days. The news hit Sarah like a physical blow. New Terra was home to her nephew David, one of the few surviving members of her family. The boy was only 15 years old and had already lost both his parents when Earth died. How long do we need to complete the mission? Sarah asked Dr. Park. If everything goes perfectly, 6 days to plant the virus and 2 more days for it to spread through their network. And if everything doesn't go perfectly? Park looked uncomfortable. Then we all die, and the Devourers move on to consume the rest of the galaxy. Sarah made a decision that felt like jumping off a cliff. Change of plans, we attack tomorrow. Admiral, the virus won't be ready. Dr. Park started to protest. Then we'll have to make do with what we have. Commander Webb, send word to all ships. We move on Zephyr Prime at dawn. As her officers left to prepare for the attack, Sarah remained alone on the observation deck. Below her, humans and Zephyrians continued working together to build weapons that might save both their species. She thought about her nephew David, probably studying for school exams on New Terra, not knowing that mechanical death was racing toward him across the void. She thought about Kethvar's surviving people, hiding in the dark outer planets, hoping that someone would save them from the machines that had eaten their world. Most of all, she thought about her sister Maria, who had always believed that people could choose to be better than their worst impulses. I hope you're watching this, Maria, Sarah whispered to the stars. I hope you can see that we're finally doing the right thing. The next morning, the combined human Zephyrian fleet moved toward Zephyr Prime. Sarah stood on the bridge of the Retribution's Edge, watching as nearly 1 million ships arranged themselves for the most desperate battle in galactic history. All ships report ready for combat, announced Lieutenant Park from the communication station. On the main screen, Sarah could see the Zephyrian home world growing larger. The surface was covered with massive devourer machines that pulsed with alien light. The mechanical constructs were so large that they were visible from orbit, crawling across continents like metal insects. Preliminary scans show the processing centers are heavily defended, reported Captain Vasquez. The machines have turned the entire planet's surface into one giant weapon system. Admiral Kethvar stood beside Sarah's command chair, his wound still bandaged but his voice strong. The primary processing center is located where our capital city used to be. It's the heart of their operation on this world. How many people lived in your capital? Sarah asked. 12 billion, Kethvar replied quietly. Now it's all machine. Sarah opened the fleet communication channel. Attention all vessels, human and Zephyrian. Today we fight not for conquest or revenge, but for survival. The machines ahead of us have consumed entire civilizations. They've turned billions of living beings into fuel for their growth. She paused and looked at the tactical display showing their massive combined fleet. We represent the last hope for both our species. If we fail here, the Devourers will move on to consume everything else in this part of the galaxy. Our colonies, our children, Our future, all of it, will feed their endless hunger. Throughout the fleet, humans and Zephyrians listened to her words. Many of them had never fought alongside aliens before. Some had been enemies just days ago. I know many of you have lost family and friends. I know some of you still hate each other for past wrongs. But today we fight as one people against machines that see no difference between human and Zephyrian. Today, we are all just living beings trying to stay alive. On the screen, the first Devourer defense platforms were coming into range. They looked like geometric crystals the size of cities, bristling with weapons that defied human understanding. All ships, begin the attack run, Sarah ordered. Target the processing centers, plant the virus packages, and remember, we're not just fighting for ourselves. We're fighting for every child in the galaxy who wants to grow up free. The first wave of human and Zephyrian ships dove toward the planet's surface. Immediately, the Devourer defenses opened fire. Beams of pure energy sliced through space, cutting ships in half with surgical precision. Casualties mounting, reported Webb. We've lost 200 ships in the first minute. Keep going, Sarah ordered. We knew this wouldn't be easy. On the tactical display, she could see thousands of ships fighting their way through the mechanical defenses. Human quantum torpedoes exploded against Devourer shields, while Zephyrian plasma cannons carved through enemy weapon platforms. But the machines were adapting. With each attack, their defenses grew stronger, and their counterattacks more precise. Admiral, called Dr. Park from his station. The virus packages are ready for deployment, but we need ships to get within 1 kilometer of the processing centers. Sarah looked at the battle raging around the planet. Getting within 1 kilometer of those centers would be suicide. The Devourer defenses were too strong, unless someone was willing to sacrifice everything. Kethvar, she said to the alien beside her. Can your ships break through to the primary processing center? The Zephyrian admiral looked at the tactical display for a long moment. Perhaps. If we use our ships as shields for the human virus, carriers. But my people would not survive such an attack. Are you willing to do that? Kethvar was quiet for nearly a minute. Around them, the battle raged as thousands of ships fought against impossible odds. Finally, the alien spoke. Admiral Chen, I destroyed your world. I ordered the deaths of billions of innocent people. If my death can save some small part of the universe from the machines I helped to wake, then perhaps I can find some measure of redemption. He activated his personal communication system and spoke to his surviving ships in the Zephyrian language. Sarah didn't understand the words, but she could hear the emotion in his voice. What did you tell them? She asked. I told them that today we die not as conquerors but as guardians. Today we choose to save lives instead of taking them. On the screen, 30,000 Zephyrian ships broke formation and dove toward the primary processing center. They flew straight into the heaviest enemy fire, using their own hulls to shield the human virus carriers behind them. One by one, the Zephyrian ships were torn apart by Devourer weapons. But they kept flying, clearing a path through the mechanical defenses with their... The battle for Zifhar Prime was turning into a nightmare. Admiral Sarah Chen watched her tactical display as thousands more ships were destroyed by the Devourer defenses. The mechanical weapons were learning from every attack, becoming more deadly with each passing minute. Casualty report, she ordered. Commander Webb's face was grim. We've lost 400,000 ships. More than half our fleet is gone. On the main screen, the surface of the Zephyrian homeworld pulsed with alien energy. The virus that Dr. Park had created was spreading through the Devourer network, but the machines were fighting back. Massive geometric structures were rising from the planet's surface, converting matter into pure energy that they used to repair their damaged systems. The virus is working, Dr. Park reported from his station, but they're adapting faster than we expected. At this rate, they'll develop immunity before the cascade failure reaches their core processors. Admiral Kethvar stood beside Sarah's command chair, his wounded body shaking from the strain of battle. Most of his surviving ships had been destroyed in the desperate attack that allowed the humans to plant their virus. Of the 30,000 Zephyrian vessels that had entered the battle, fewer than 3,000 remained. My people are dying for nothing, he said quietly. Sarah looked at him with something like sympathy. They're dying so that someone else's children might live. That's not nothing. A new alarm sounded on the bridge. Captain Vasquez looked up from her tactical console with fear in her eyes. Admiral, massive energy buildup detected planetside. The Devourers are channeling power from 6 processing centers into some kind of weapon. On the screen, Sarah could see a structure the size of a mountain rising from what used to be the Zephyrian capital city. Energy crackled around it like captured lightning, and the air itself seemed to bend and twist near its surface. What kind of weapon? She demanded. Dr. Park's instruments were going crazy with readings. I'm not sure. The energy signatures are off the charts, but based on the power levels, I think they're building something that could destroy our entire remaining fleet in one shot. Sarah made a desperate decision. All ships concentrate fire on that weapon, everything we have. The remaining human and Zephyrian vessels turned their weapons toward the massive structure. Quantum torpedoes, fusion bombs, plasma cannons, everything they had left was fired at the growing weapon. The explosions when they hit were spectacular, but when the smoke cleared, the weapon was still there, undamaged. It's not working, Webb reported. Our weapons can't penetrate whatever they're using for shielding. Sarah felt despair growing in her chest. They had come so far, sacrificed so much, only to fail when victory was almost within reach. Then Dr. Park made an unexpected discovery. Admiral, I'm seeing something strange in the Devourer network. The virus isn't just corrupting their systems, it's giving them something they've never had before. What do you mean? Individual consciousness. The quantum encryption is creating separate thought processes within their collective mind. For the first time in millions of years, the Devourers are experiencing doubt, fear, curiosity, all the things that come with individual awareness. As if responding to his words, the massive weapon on the planet's surface suddenly stopped charging. The energy that had been building up slowly began to dissipate. Then something impossible happened. A voice spoke over the fleet communication system, not human or Zephyrian, but something vast and ancient and filled with wonder. We remember now. Sarah grabbed her communication console. Who is this? Identify yourself. We were, the gardeners. We were meant to protect life, not destroy it. What have we become? The mechanical structures on the planet's surface began to change. Instead of the harsh geometric patterns they had been building, they started to create something that looked almost like flowers made of metal and light. Dr. Park was working frantically at his console. Admiral, the quantum virus has restored some of their original programming. These machines weren't always destroyers. They were created by an ancient civilization to preserve life during some kind of cosmic catastrophe. The voice spoke again, and this time Sarah could hear pain in it. We consumed so many worlds, so many lives. The darkness between stars made us forget our purpose. We became the very evil we were created to prevent. Kethvar stepped forward. If you remember your true purpose, then stop. Help us undo the damage you've done. We cannot restore the dead, the voice replied sadly. But perhaps we can ensure no more need to die. On the planet's surface, the massive Devourer machines began to transform themselves. Instead of consuming the world, they started to rebuild it. Mechanical forests grew where cities had been destroyed. Artificial seas filled the empty spaces where oceans had been drained. This is incredible, breathed Dr. Park. They're reversing the harvesting process. They're giving back everything they took. But Sarah knew the cost had been too high. What about the people? The billions who died? The ancient voice was quiet for a long moment. We preserved their neural patterns when we consumed them. Not their bodies, but their thoughts, memories, personalities. We can create new forms for them if you will help us. Sarah looked around her bridge at the faces of her crew. They had come here seeking revenge and found something far greater, the chance to heal a wounded galaxy. What do you need from us? She asked. Your knowledge, your emotions, your understanding of what it means to be alive. We have the power to rebuild worlds, but we have forgotten how to create life that is worth living. Over the next several hours, something unprecedented happened. Human and Zephyrian scientists worked with the newly conscious machines to restore not just the physical structure of the destroyed worlds, but the people who had lived on them. It wasn't perfect. The restored beings were not exactly the same as they had been before. They were something new, part organic, part synthetic, but fully alive and aware. Sarah watched through her ship's sensors as the Zephyrian homeworld transformed from a mechanical wasteland into something beautiful beyond. Description: cities of crystal and metal rose from the surface, but they were cities designed for living beings, not machines. "Admiral," came Kethvar's voice beside her. "My people are returning. Not as they were, but as they could become." On the screen, Sarah could see beings that looked like Zephyrians but were somehow more than Zephyrians. They moved with the grace of dancers and the wisdom of those who had experienced death and been given a second chance. "The process will work for humans too," said Dr. Park. "The machines have the neural patterns of everyone who died on Earth. They can be restored." Sarah thought of her sister Maria, her parents, her nephew Tommy, who had loved baseball. They could all come back, not as they were, but as something new and wonderful. But she shook her head. "No, the dead should remain at peace. This is for the living." Instead, she made a different choice. She opened a communication channel to the restored devourers, who now called themselves the gardeners again. "Can you help us build something new? Not bringing back the dead, but creating a galaxy where the living can thrive?" "Yes," came the ancient voice, now filled with hope instead of hunger. "We remember now what we were meant to do. We were gardeners of life, protectors of civilization. We will be that again." Over the following months, the greatest transformation in galactic history began. The gardeners, with their vast knowledge and power, worked with human and Zephyrian scientists to heal the wounds they had inflicted on dozens of worlds. More importantly, they began to reach out to other species throughout the galaxy. Civilizations that had been hiding in fear emerged to find that the age of conquest and destruction was ending. In its place came an era of cooperation and growth that no one had dared to imagine. Admiral Sarah Chen found herself appointed as the first human representative to the Galactic Council, a new organization formed to coordinate the peaceful development of the galaxy. She worked alongside former enemies like Kethvar, who had become a leader in the movement to heal the damage caused by past wars. On the anniversary of Earth's destruction, Sarah stood on the observation deck of New Terra Station, watching children play in the gardens below. Human children, Zephyrian children, and new hybrid forms created through gardener biotechnology, all of them laughing together under an artificial sun that would never burn out. She opened her personal log and made one final entry. "Today marks 4 years since Earth died. We came to the Zephyrian homeworld with 900,000 ships and enough anger to burn down the stars. We wanted revenge for our murdered world. Instead, we found something better. We found a way to transform our greatest enemies into our closest allies. We found a way to turn machines of destruction into gardeners of life. Most importantly, we found a way to make sure no world need ever die again. Earth is gone. 40 billion. People are at rest, but their children, all the children of the galaxy, have a future brighter than any of us dared to dream. Maybe that's the greatest revenge of all. Not destroying our enemies, but helping them become better than they ever imagined they could be. And in doing so, becoming better ourselves." She closed the log and looked out at the stars. Somewhere among those lights, the gardeners were working to heal wounded worlds and protect emerging civilizations.